welcome to this episode of Who Gets the China, where we are working together to save our sanity with caring for aging parents and learning how to be the best possible caregivers we can be for our parents. So I'm super excited today to have my esteemed guest, Anthony Cirillo, with me. Anthony and I have had lots of great conversations, and I know he's going to bring a tremendous amount of interest and expertise to our discussion today. Anthony is an aging expert and outspoken advocate for aging well. He is a fellow of the College of Healthcare Executives. He's a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, and he does a tremendous amount of writing and music production and creativity in this space. So I'm really excited to have you here today, Anthony.
Thanks, Kirsten. Pleasure to be here.
So I love to kind of just start off and give our listeners some background. And I know music is a passion of yours, and you produce music in a lot of different ways. And I think we're going to talk a lot about that today, the benefits of music on older adults and people living with dementia.
Sure.
But I would just love for you to share with us some of your background and how you came to find yourself in this line of work.
Yeah. So it's going to be like when I was 10, but literally when I was 10, I learned to play the guitar. And my dad had bought it for me, and I hated it. And then he passed away when I was 11, unfortunately. And then I self-taught. So it's always pertinent. My music has always been part of me. I was in my first band at 13 years old. We were playing in clubs, underage, that kind of thing. So I'm a vocalist, I'm a bass player, guitar player, keyboard player. All right. Fast forward through many careers, and I wound up in hospital work in the Philadelphia area. I worked for a group of hospital systems as the marketing director, but I was also gigging full time at night. Got kind of burnt out and said, well, what am I going to do with this God-given talent? And I went into my first continuing care retirement community in Atco, New Jersey, and started playing for the seniors. And it was a way to make money. And then it became a calling because I fell in love with these folks. And I've probably done 3,000 performances, over the years. But that changed my career from a, hospital guy to a health and aging, because my next stop was in New York. I helped launch a company that worked with seniors in the boroughs of New York. We were at 14 Wall Street. It was pretty cool working on Wall Street. And then made our way down to the Carolinas. And I was fortunate enough because my wife had the big corporate job, which brought us down here, but it allowed me to open up my little home office and start doing consulting. And that's evolved over the years till the point now where I'm at doing radio and TV work. I just had a TV segment yesterday on Charlotte Today, locally here, and writing, of course, as you mentioned, and music. So it's sort of it's a full circle thing.
It's interesting because I've interviewed so many experts in so many different fields, caring for older adults and supporting healthcare workers and caregivers. And almost everybody has a similar story where they sort of ultimately fell into this either by accident or through a particular experience that has led them to find what they call a true calling. I feel like we all have that kind of in common about working with this population.
Yeah, absolutely. And I when I do some workshops I have a branding workshop that I do for young executives, and I tell them, my first hospital job, they pieced together my story that I had worked in the media, and then I worked in medical publishing, and they sort of figured, well, he must know physicians, he must know medical, he must know how to write, he's got media experience, and they piece together how I got into my first job. But since then, everything's been a build, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, one thing leads to another, which leads to, well, maybe this now. So I always counsel people to kind of watch for the signs and watch for how, the adjacencies of what you can build when you're going through a career.
Yeah, you never know how it's going to all weave together at the end. So let's talk about music and aging. I think you have some expertise on the brain and how music connects us to maybe ourselves and to other people, and why music is such an important part of aging well and coping with dementia. So I'm going to let you just talk about that for a minute, because that is something I really know nothing about.
Right. And I won't get too geeky because I'm not a neuroscientist, but I have neuroscientists who advise me of what's happening in our brain. But I will say I am if something people want to look up, it's called the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function, big name. But it was founded by Oliver Sacks,
Hmm.
which a lot of people know, and Connie Tomeno. And they do a lot of work around music. And so they're more science based. So I joke with people that I got my dementia training on the ground, right? When I started doing these performances, I was a deer in the headlights. I had been a musician on stage, hiding behind a bass guitar. Then I started having, wireless microphone roaming around the crowds, and seniors will tell you what they really think, right?
Yes.
And so you learn to adapt, which made me a better professional speaker. But the one thing I noticed right away was how many times you go into a room and you start singing, and there's somebody who clearly has Alzheimer's or advanced memory issues, and they're asleep. They pop up for the program, they sing the songs, and then they're back out. And so there's a whole science. I have a science behind this. I have a neuroscientist named Raul. He works down at John Hopkins, and he's done a video for me for my streaming platform. And he goes through the different areas of the brain that light up. So, for example, when if you're somebody who likes to listen to the lyrics and pay attention to that, it's your parietal cortex. It's your frontal temporal lobe if you're into listening. Singing comes from the frontal lobe. So all these things sort of get ignited. Your corticospinal area impacts dance and movement. So a lot of times you will see videos where, and I show one where there's a dance instructor and a Parkinson's patient. And next thing you know, they're playing music and he goes from having a gait to dancing, flawlessly, right? So things, get ignited in the brain that help with all kinds of things. Our cerebellum remembers kind of the settings. I do a little exercise because I tell people, you don't have to have dementia to understand what's going on here. And in my keynotes, I play 15 songs, literally 5 seconds of each. And it's just the beginning, the
Okay.
iconic beginning of the song. Could be Hotel California, it could be Stairway to Heaven. There's, 15 of them. And
Hmm.
so the key is, all right, folks, shout out the song. And of course, they do.
Yeah.
And so that's happening without you trying to work at it. It's pulling it from the same area that everybody else is pulling it from, except all their other areas are closed off, but that one remains open, which is why you see Glenn Campbell entertained way past after his dementia diagnosis. Tony Bennett, the same.
Yes.
If I could live like that, I mean, knock on wood, at least I know I could always strap on the guitar.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of fascinating that you could lose the ability to recall so much else that's in your brain, but yet the music would still come through. I mean, and even like think about music lyrics. My husband and I went to this yacht rock concert the other night. I think it's totally a hoot and super funny. And there's a band that travels around and we go, and I love to just have fun and hear them. And I mean, there's songs that like you might not listen to all the time, but as soon as they start playing it, it you just recall it right away. And you don't even necessarily know like where it got pre-programmed into your brain and at what stage of life, but it's there ready to present itself. I would love for you to talk to me more about your brain on music and what that is and how it works and what you do with it.
Yeah. So basically, your brain on music is a presentation that I do, but it also leads to an offering that I have. So essentially, I go through a lot of the neuroscience that I quickly just, presented to you. We show videos of like Alive Inside, where there's this gentleman, Henry. You probably, maybe a lot of people have seen this video where they put the headphones on, they play his favorite songs, and he comes alive, he starts singing, and then he's lucid for a long period after that, where he'll talk to you about his favorite songs. So it gets a little bit into what is actually going on in the brain, behind the scenes. And then I go into a few other things, like there's some music solutions out there. So I thought that I was in a very crowded marketplace because there was all these senior solutions out there. But what I found, there's very few music solutions. And there's something like Coro Health is one. Coro, uses algorithms and questionnaires to come up with the genres and songs that might work for a person, and in different stages of the day, their mood, whatever it might be. And so there's a limited amount of solutions that actually, look at that whole idea of, as Connie says in her book, that music has power. Um, the right music at the right time, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of, music has power when you're having the right music at the right time. So what I do, I have a subset of my Sage Stream live streaming concert platform that I call Memoir and Song. And so what I do is we have a template, and it's a fairly extensive one, but it delves into your brain on music. Basically, what did you listen, where did you grow up? What kind of music did you listen to? What was your first concert? Did you sing in the choir? Did you play an instrument? And the list goes on. And then, even goes into mood states. What do you listen to when you're down? What do you listen to when you want to celebrate? And essentially, the idea is to come up with 10 to 15 songs that define your life. And so that people document their life story. They do it in writing, they do it in photographs, they do it in video. But as far as I know, nobody is doing it in song. And
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to do with a memoir and song. So the idea is you come up with that list yourself or with the caregiver helps, and then two ways to present it. I can go in my studio after having a conversation with the caregiver and understanding the context and just record it and give them an
Mhm.
audio and video. The best way is to do it like this, where the caregiver and the older person is there, and then I can say, "Hey, I'm about to sing XYZ. Tell me what it means to you," and then sing the song, get their feedback. So, your brain on music is just basically this basic premise that the right song at the right time is going to have the most impact on you.
One of the things that I've learned about when I've interviewed so many people is it's not about the item or the thing or the problem you're trying to solve. It's about trying to build that connection with your loved one, right? Your parent is not going to be here forever. And if you're lucky enough to have this kind of time with them, how do you use it to greatest effect? And I am fascinated by your life and song because it just feels like such an amazing way to connect with your loved one
Yeah.
and relive part of their life. Like I think for us, we know our dad, he's a huge Frank Sinatra fan. We did a video for my parents' like 25th anniversary, and it was the My Way song and a bunch of other things
Sure.
mixed in. But it's like, so for me, those are songs that I really connect with my dad on, and I know he does too. And so it seems like a really fun way to capture memories of them, but then also their response to it. Because a lot of times they'll say, like, oh, I remember, he met Frank Sinatra at a restaurant one time just in passing.
Oh,
But
well. Mhm.
it's just the song triggers memories, right?
Yes.
And that builds your connection. And
Yeah.
so for me, that is what kind of gives me the warm and fuzzy about something like this. What a great thing to share with your parent.
No, absolutely. I mean, I tell people that if I hear the Steely Dan song, Ricky, Don't Lose That Number,
Yeah.
I could tell you I was on the boardwalk in Wildwood, New Jersey, which is a seashore town south of Atlantic City and north of Cape May, outside an arcade when I was like 13 years old, because
Yeah.
that's the song that was coming out of the arcade.
It is
I'm right
amazing.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And also you referred back to your first concert. And I feel like that's always a great question to ask people. What was your first concert? So, all right, what was your first concert?
So my first concert, and this is a crazy story, it was Three Dog Night. So,
Okay.
Corey, Danny, and Chuck, and Chuck just passed away. I think there's only one dog left,
Okay.
and they got their name from Australia outback. They how cold it was how many dogs you needed to warm yourself. So they needed three
Oh my
dogs,
gosh.
Three Dog Night. Anyway, so I went to this concert at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, which is no longer there, and I'm up in the bleachers. And unbeknownst to me, and I didn't meet my wife till 30 years later, we know we were at the same concert that night because of the time period, the amount of concerts they did, the year it was,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and there was a lull in the concert, and she just shouted out, "I love you, Corey!" And when she told me that, I said, I was at that concert.
Oh my
I said,
gosh.
I heard that and I never forgot it. And it was evidently was
Oh
her.
my
So
gosh, that's incredible. I've got the chills, Anthony. I love it. I
yeah,
mean,
that's a weird one. Yeah.
that's a, I mean, yeah, that's a particularly special one, but I do love that. And it just that it's the power of music, right? I mean,
And what was yours?
mine was the Police. The
Okay.
Synchronicity Tour. I think I was in middle school and I remember it was our first concert and my best friend Polly and I were dying to go. And the only way my parents would let us go is if we had chaperones. And of course, in middle school, you want your parents nowhere near you. So my dad got extra tickets, and my friend Polly, her brother and sister who were older, took us. And so it was like a win-win for them because I think they were probably in high school and it was
Sure.
probably great. And I'm trying to remember the venue because it was when I lived in Connecticut. And I remember it was an outdoor venue. So I'm feeling like it was Jones Beach, but that feels like too small of a place for them to perform at. So
Mhm.
now I'm going to have to go look that up.
There you
I
go.
remember what I was wearing. I remember the whole night. And then we got to see Sting out here at Red Rocks not all that long ago. And he's,
Oh,
of course, sang some of the same songs. And I mean, still unbelievable. So anyway,
Red Rocks, one of my bucket list.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth it. It's definitely worth getting out here for one of those. I do want to hear a little bit about your caregiving story, and kind of how that's influenced your life and your connection to this work.
My mom lived till she was 94. And so she lived in South Philly for the longest time. And, you know, the thing is, she really had medical issues. She didn't have any kind of memory issues. She was a feisty old Italian broad who was not afraid of cursing like a sailor. I mean, everybody loved her. Everybody remembered her. We have a good old boyfriend down here, Billy, who met her outside at one of our Fourth of July parties, and all she did was complain about her life. And he scared him to death, and he still remembers her to this day. So, but my unfortunately my caregiving story is maybe a familiar one to some people. So, it took the longest time for us for mom to make her own decision to move out of South Philadelphia and move to Florida to be closer to my sister. Okay, so they moved in, and she moved in with her, and then, my wife and I decided we had to separate the combatants because, they were going to kill each other. And so we bought a condo for mom. We were fortunate enough to be able to do that. And then mom had an operation. She was like the bionic woman. So she was 88. She had a screw put in her neck to stabilize her spine because she was
Oh
having
my
like these electrical
word.
shocks
Wow.
down her whole spine. We thought she ain't coming out of this one.
Right.
They roll her out. She doesn't even go to ICU. She goes in right into her regular room. And her compromise was she couldn't drive anymore because she could only turn her head a certain amount. So,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
she moved back in with my sister. A thing that I basically told my sister we should find some assisted living for her, and my sister didn't want to. So my sister was her primary caregiver, but then my sister predeceased her,
Oh
and
no. Oh, I'm
yes,
sorry.
uh, with lung cancer. She had this misconceived notion that because my mother still smoked and lived till 94 with congestive heart failure and COPD and every
Mm-hmm.
laundry list you have, that she would too,
Oh no.
and she didn't. So I basically had first the whole family dynamic changed. My brother-in-law got super weird, um, and it was just a mess. I mean, we were doing a little caregiving with my sister as well because her diagnosis and her death were just 3 weeks. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that gives me the chills. I'm so sorry. That's rough. Wow.
yeah. Well, it was crazy because at the same time, on the same day my sister was diagnosed, and I don't make any of this up because it's too serious. It's my brother-in-law died. So unexpectedly, my wife's brother died. He was working on his car, and it collapsed on him.
Oh my gosh.
on the same
Anthony,
day that I
wow.
got the call that my sister had this cancer. So we had to basically run back because we're going up to Philly for the holidays because it was in December, and we had to run back here and then scoot off to Florida and attended her first chemo, or not chemo, her oncology sessions to find out what they were
Hmm.
going to do. And they assured us that she had some time because we had a go to a wedding in Hawaii because the person who was getting married, that was her father who died. And so my
Oh,
in-laws, now he had to walk her down the aisle and we sort of had to chaperone them to Hawaii. And while we were second day in Hawaii, that's when my sister passed. Because, basically my brother-in-law, who, God rest his soul too now, but he basically said, when you getting her out of here? Was
oh,
basically, yeah, it was one of those. So we had to come back to North Carolina and it was basically 6 weeks, I think, I had to figure this all out. And being in the profession, I thought I just assumed she needs assisted living, right? And that was not the case. I had a friend who worked in home care. He said, if you go into one of these independent living communities and have home care come in, and I started going down her daily activities and said, oh, yeah, for sure. So he moved her into an independent living.
okay.
And she did have one stint in a rehab when she had a little mishap, and then her last operation, she never quite make it back there. So she at 94, she passed. But mine was, she was just mentally challenging for me, So because she had all her faculties, and she would she would drive me crazy, and some of it she would do deliberately. Like she would say crap out of the blue, and then she said she would confide in my wife, "Oh, I'm just doing that to break his you know what."
Yes, yes.
You know?
Oh,
Oh, thanks,
yes.
mom. Yeah, right.
Oh,
So, of course, caregiver guilt and being Catholic and all that. When I went back to my physician after mom passed, because he took care of her first, and which is why I switched physicians to him because he was so thorough and so good, and he's my physician to this day. But he said, you essentially um, did everything that was expected of you, especially being a male caregiver.
hmm.
And so don't have any misgivings about your journey. But mine was different in that, her medical problems were more chronic than acute until, the last one where it was just a major operation that we knew she wasn't going to come home.
Hmm.
So it was just a matter of time. So it was a short but intense period, but it was compounded with my sister passing and all that stuff. So
Sounds like her physician was quite insightful and thoughtful to recognize that you did everything you could. Because I do think as caregivers, no matter what phase or stage you're in, you always suffer from a feeling of like, did I do all the things right? Did I do well enough? Was I good enough, strong enough, helpful enough? And you're never going to achieve perfection, right? So, I mean, I think it's nice that that person was able to validate all the effort that you did put in. And especially when you're dealing with a difficult parent. And like, I don't feel like anybody's parent is perfect. I think a lot of us have parents that can be particularly challenging, especially as they get older and feistier. So I feel
yes.
for you.
But
Yeah.
he was good in that. How many physicians actually care about the caregiver when they come in? They're paying
Right.
attention to the person that they're taking care of. But he was always had his eye on, my health, especially since I then switched to him and he was taking care of both of us. So he was
Yeah.
monitoring me. So, my stress level absolutely was higher.
Yeah.
Because it just was because you just didn't know what's going to happen next.
Now we're becoming much more aware of the strain and the stress on caregivers, right? That it's the amount of taxation on you emotionally and physically and mentally is really high. And music is good for caregivers too, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things I've talked to several folks about. I have a one friend, she moved back home to care for both of her parents, and she uses music every day with them. Different music during different parts of the day, mealtime, there's particular music, or she'll
Yep.
ask them, like, hey, what do you guys want to listen to now? And she's always amazed at how her parents can like pull some random musician out of their hat that maybe she didn't even know about. And of course, they know all the words. But also, I think it's healing for the caregiver. Like, it's just a mental break, right? It just helps reduce the stress in the room. It's not TV. It's not shouting at you. It's a much different auditory experience that's good for caregivers and for the older adult.
But the thing is, just listening to music is
Yeah.
beneficial. I mean, just having it on in the background, you know, every day. Because I know some people don't listen to any music, and it's like, to me, music is so enriching. And
Yeah.
so, I have seven studies I had pulled out, that from my work and from my website that talk about the impact of music. I mean, there's real science behind all of this.
Something I wanted to talk to you about too is the idea of social prescribing.
Yes.
I think that's something that I've learned a lot about, and I know some of that from my own work in behavioral health care. But I would love for you to talk a little bit about that as much more of an expert than I am on it, and why it's so what it is. Let's define what social prescribing is for a lot of people who don't know, why it's important, and how is music part of that?
Social prescribing is kind of big in the UK, and the government pays for it. Also in Australia and New Zealand. But the idea is pretty basic. It's the idea of, instead of prescribing a medication, so we go to a doctor and we have anxiety. Here's a pill. Over there, it's like, here's a arts program. Go paint. Here's a music program. Here's a nature walk. Here's a support group that might help. So it's replacing, you know, medications with arts, right? And nature. And essentially it's already been documented in the UK to save money in the healthcare system, but also to reduce the need for like antipsychotics in nursing homes and things like that. And so there are pockets of social prescribing in the US. There's a couple groups that are launching networks in different cities, and they're putting together coalitions of providers, insurers, artists, and it becomes part of the toolkit for the arts. And that's why I'm trying to work with a local health system. It's a huge health system around social prescribing to, especially as some of the entrepreneurial practices, to get them to think about prescribing music. Because, when we created Sage Stream, which is our concert network, I was, inspired because my healthcare background showed that social isolation was a huge issue in society. Caregiver respite was a huge issue. Staffing in nursing homes. So there was a lot of stories, that justified why we needed to have music. So having a science basis of the fact that music works, and it's been documented to work as a prescription, but then, not just to point to the studies, but actually put it part of the medical structure is what social prescribing's trying to achieve.
And talk to me about music. How does just like listening to it figure into that social prescribing?
Listening to it in general, there are studies that show that just listening to music is beneficial. But,
Hmm.
you mentioned your first concert, my first concert, it's like any activity, right? When like I do kickboxing 4 days a week, and now I have a little tribe of people in my kickboxing class. So it's about kind of the tribe of people who you then commune with over
Hmm.
music.
Hmm.
So, that is part of it as well. The social connectiveness, you can connect over a lot of things, but some of them are, isolated. If you're taking a painting class, well, you're painting, the other person's painting. But if you're in a chorus, a senior chorus or something like that, you're part of a team, part of a tribe. And of course, social connection, the more and more, that's what rises to the top. I mean, one of the biggest societal issues is social isolation,
Hmm. Yep.
and one of the biggest solutions is social connection. And music can really, help with that connecting. So I mean, I think that's one. I'm just going to look at some of my studies here. So yeah, virtual group singing. Northwestern University did a study that says can improve well-being. Um, NeuroArts Blueprint finds a strong return on investment from music engagement. Study in Nature showed the perks of music therapy, how it can ease agitation. We know that music, when it's prescribed correctly, if you use the
Hmm.
wrong music with the wrong, at the wrong time with the wrong person, you're
Yeah,
going
like
to
heavy metal
agitate
at the
them.
wrong time might not be
Right,
that great.
exactly. You're gonna make them. You're not gonna make them happy.
No.
But if it's the right music that's going to spur memories, that's just music has a different resonance, I think, than most other things.
I mean, it makes me wonder why we just don't have music more integral in hospital care. And I work at a children's hospital, and we do have a music studio in the hospital where the kids can come down, and sometimes famous
Oh,
musicians
cool.
pop in or not, or there's instruments and they can, create music or just act as a DJ for an hour. And then the rest of the kids in the hospital can listen to it, engage with it. And so I think there are places and ways where we are starting to integrate music into healthcare, but like we can start at home doing it
Yeah.
for our own family.
There's a cool guy. He's on Substack. His name's Mark Barnacle, and he works with children, and he also works with older adults. And he does these songwriting classes. It's really amazing, and he videographies the whole thing, and he'll go into and work with children over 3 or 4 days, and maybe then come back. And he teaches them kind of the fundamentals of songwriting and things like that. And by the end of them working together, they've composed the song. Then he comes back with a whole recording crew, and then they record the song. And to watch it and to see the ownership that they take and the excitement, but then he does it with older folks too. And that's the other thing, is the intergenerational aspect of all this
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
is something that can't be ignored. I mean, I believe that just to plug my Sage Stream for a second. So what it is, it's a live stream interactive music concert network. So the essence is when we're live, we're live. You could take requests and do shout outs and things like that. And we have 120 artists in the UK and the US who, many of whom have supported major artists. But I do believe that this is like a home care solution where a younger caregiver who has nothing to do at 2 o'clock in the afternoon can watch a concert together with somebody. We're seeing some new assisted living communities, when they start building, they'll put a daycare center next to it, and then they'll intermingle the activities. And what better way to intermingle than through music activities and music sharing?
There are a few things that have intergenerational connectedness as much as music. And so it is a logical way to kind of bring people together. A lot of what brought me on this journey of For Who Gets the China was me starting to unearth my family's history through things and through things my mom had saved. And a lot of my friends knowing that we're all dealing with inheritances that we may or may not want, like China and crystal or fabric or whatever the case may be. So I think everybody has kind of a story or a connection to an item or a box of things that bring back memories of their parents. And I'd love to know if you have a Who Gets the China moment or story that you want to share with us.
Yeah, actually, this took me for a second to figure out, because with my mom, there was several moves, and so we kind of downsized as we went. So there wasn't a whole lot. Like I have, let me see what I knock on. This
Oh,
this
I
this
love
this
it.
this is hers. Okay.
So for the listener, it's a sort of a purple.
Hey, look, you could put a candy dish in it or
Yeah, it's like a
something. Yeah,
candy dish,
candy.
sort of like
Yes.
an, I don't know, an abstract purplish colored candy
Yes,
dish.
it's
Yes.
it's crazy. So there wasn't a whole lot with her, but this is ironic. So every year, so I'm a baby boomer. I'll be 69 next month. And every year my wife and I, literally on New Year's, we go through the house, we make a list, what needs to be done. This year it was like, all right, I want to get some of this stuff done. And so one of them was, I need to go in my music studio and start clearing some stuff out. And So I went through there, and this is only last week I did this. This is kind of fun.
Okay.
And I grabbed six different things that I wanted to sell. I found out the places to sell them, Facebook Market, and there's a couple other music sites. And I've already sold like three things already. And it's not like, you know, they had their worth at the time and I used them, but I didn't have any other emotional attachment to them. Now my guitars are a different story, and probably my daughter will get them and will love to have them
Mm-hmm.
because she's a guitar player. But the desk I'm at here, I just bought for like 200 bucks at Wayfair because I had this huge sectional of a desk that
Uh-huh.
we bought at Furnitureland South. It's in Hickory, furniture capital of the world. Several $1,000s, multiple hutches. Well, I started taking that apart last week too and carted the whole thing down the stairs myself,
Oh
flipping it
no.
on its smooth
Oh
side, going down the stairs. So I'm very cognizant, and so, as is my wife. I think boomers are a little more cognizant of this issue of
Yes, I
not
think so.
wanting
Yeah.
to leave anything. So that wasn't that big of an issue with my mother because we had several iterations to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
And she, this is a kind of funny. So when she moved out of her apartment back to my sister's after she had this operation, I said, well, we got to clean this apartment because she smoked. And I can't tell you what that does to the walls and the carpets. But, her recliner had so many cigarette marks in it that it's a wonder she didn't burn
Oh
down the
my
whole
gosh.
condominium complex. But the thing is, she got really ticked off at us because we started chucking it. It's like, I didn't have a whole lot of discussion with her. I said,
Yeah.
you're never going to use it again. It can't fit in here. We're getting rid of it. Oh, it's Mr. High and Mighty. Ah. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're not alone with that. I mean, we look at things and it's like, really? You want to keep this? Why? I don't understand. It's like, but there's for whatever reason, it's their chair, it's their thing. And I think we don't need a lot of things, right? But like you have your one thing on your desk and it's unique. Nobody else probably has something exactly like that. And for you, it's enough of a symbol that it calls forth your mom when you're working. And,
Yeah.
do you need basements full of stuff? No, not really. And I mean, we're kind of the same mind of how do we minimize slowly in stages now. And my husband also is a musician and he has also quite a lot of guitars and other instruments. And I wonder what's going to happen with those someday. So we'll see. I don't know if my girls are going to want them or not, but talk to me about what has been kind of an unexpected aspect of doing this work for you. Like, what have you learned about yourself through this work?
Well, I think I hit on it earlier when I was talking to you, life is a journey and things build on each other. I mean, there's people who spend a career in one job doing one thing, and God bless them and God love them for that. But there are others who build career this organic, way. And I'm always like, going on the TV show like yesterday. That was like probably over 100 appearances I've done in the history of this show. Um, that wasn't something did at one time, but because I was doing a lot of writing and professional speaking, I went to a couple workshops on TV, and I said, "Well, I could do this." So it's kind of the unexpected nature of how things build on each other, and then how it becomes a full circle moment. Because I started my life out with music before anything else. Music has always been. It's a wonder I just didn't go out to the West Coast. I had an uncle out there who knew some people in the business and do that, but I didn't. And so, but yet music has come back again in my later years to have a big difference, not just in my life, but now in others' lives.
Music's a good thing to circle around. Do you
Absolutely.
have any other sort of moments, aha moments from working with older adults or performing with them or people that, listen to your show and chime in? Are there any other moments that stand out to you where you really felt like you made a specific impact on someone?
Okay, I'll have to tell you this story then. But a couple of things I was going to say too in preface is that a couple of things I've learned just about life because again, my wife had a great corporate job, which is why we came down to the Carolinas, and so it was kind of a team effort on how we did all this, but allowed me to do all the things that I do. And basically one of the things I discovered was, making a difference doesn't always mean having to make money, right?
Hmm.
And you know, it is what it is. It's a real realization. But I've also realized how much I have impacted people, and it comes through in various ways. Sometimes it's direct, especially through Substack now. I'm hearing a lot more feedback, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But I'll tell you one story. It's called The Story of Esther. It's in one of my keynote speeches. So when I first came to the Carolinas, Esther was in an assisted living in Hickory, about an hour from here. And so, I came down here, put my marketing hat on. My consulting was just picking up, and I had a lot of time to entertain. So I went up there, and she became my designated heckler. She would just, play around with me, and it was all in good fun. And we became friends over a number of years. So I went up there one time, and the activity director said, I'd like you to come with me to the hospital and visit Esther. I said, okay, what's going on there? So we're driving over, and she said, well, she was in this coronary care unit. She actually had died, and they revived her. And so she's there, and she wants you. I said, well, what does she want me for? So I got there, and Esther, first of all, she starts flirting with me, and her daughter's there, and her daughter says, Mom, he's a married man, that kind of thing. So she is a very religious woman, and there's a song called Because He Lives. Because He Lives, I can face tomorrow. Beautiful song. She wanted me to sing it to her. I said, Esther, I said, we're in the Bible Belt down here. I'm a guy from South Philly. I don't know this song. I know Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and I wound up singing Unforgettable from Nat King Cole because in that moment it was unforgettable and she was unforgettable. But I said, I'm going to learn the song. So I came home, found the track, learned to sing it, recorded a CD, sent it to her. She was back in the assisted living. Fast forward a few weeks, the activity director calls me. Yeah, Esther had gotten the thing. She already knew who it was from even before she opened it. But she was in hospice. And then she passed. And they told me, when the funeral arrangements were. Now, if we all made the habit of going to all the funerals of all the residents I've entertained over the years, that would be time consuming.
That'd be
So,
tough.
but I did go to Esther's funeral. And of course the song featured was Because He Lives.
Oh.
But what happened during this moment was the daughter came up to me and she started crying. And she said she hadn't cried up until then, until she saw me. So I have no idea what's going on here. She goes, did you hear about my mother's last day of life? I said, no. She goes, well, we played your CD with your one song, Because He Lives, over and over and over again until the daughter lay down next to her or kneeled down next to her mom, started singing with her and telling her to let go. And Esther died that day. And it stops you in your tracks
Oh,
because
gosh.
even if I wanted to give up this whole journey, when you hear a story like that,
I
you
know.
can't, you know, because look at, I don't know what role I had in Esther's passing from this life to whatever, awaits, but I was clearly part of it and I didn't
Right.
even know it.
Oh my
And it was all
gosh.
because of a song that she wanted me to sing to her.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, you talk about impact.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, and you could never have predicted that or known
No,
it, you
no. And
know.
I have other similar ones, but not quite the impact of the Esther one,
Oh,
but similar.
but to your
Yeah.
point you were making earlier, it's just that's kind of what makes it all worthwhile. And we don't have to measure satisfaction and accomplishment in financial ways. It's more important in a human connection.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
takes a while to come to that, especially when you're a male,
Yeah.
and you're not the breadwinner.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it takes some processing for any male caregivers out there. Believe me, I've been through it, but
Well,
I
you're like a
realize that
Renaissance man, I think, Anthony.
yeah,
I feel like you've got a lot more perspective and I don't know,
well, it's interesting you say that because
expertise.
the Wall Street Journal did an article once about, was it on about Beyonce and I don't know, yeah, something about being, or not Beyonce, was who's she married to?
Oh, Jay-Z.
Jay-Z, maybe, but about being a Renaissance man. And they said, can you be a Renaissance man in another field? And I sort of told them about my journey in music and how it's evolved and how, the interrelationship of all the parts. And they featured me. So, and they used that word, which then I had to, I couldn't live down from my friends. Oh, here comes the Renaissance man.
Yeah, I can imagine that leads to a lot of ribbing.
Oh yeah,
But,
absolutely.
that's okay. You can endure it knowing that you're bringing joy and meaning to people. And I think for me, the part of this that resonates so much is just remembering music, remembering to bring music into your day-to-day life, which I try to do a lot. My husband is a musician and it matters to him, but also into the caregiving journey. And I even try to do this when I'm with my mom, like, let's turn Alexa on, mom. Let's ask her to play the greatest hits from the 50s, because that's what
Right.
she loves to listen to.
Sure.
And it completely diffuses the stress and the anxiety of whatever else might be going on. And even just like decluttering, honestly, I know it sounds kind of silly, but when you're trying to get through a tough emotional task, like I will do that with her. Like, let's put some good music on. It can take the stress away and it can just make whatever else you're going through more palatable or more joyful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
More music.
More music, absolutely. Well, I will absolutely share the link to Sage Stream and all the other things in my show notes. But is there anything else that you wanted to highlight before we say farewell?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot of ground. So just keep listening to music. Music's an important part of life, and the more you could do it and do it with others, the better we'll all be.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. And that is it for this episode of Who Gets the China? Who Gets the China is written and hosted by Kirsten Mao, produced by Aaron Bryce of Blue Ogden Productions. Our theme music is composed by Greg Fellman of Wind Sand Productions. Our cover art is by Jen Beam of Gigawatt Studio. For more stories and expert advice, follow along on Substack or at www.whogetsthechina.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might appreciate the conversation. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.